I'm Ebony, 34 years old, and the proud owner of a beautiful beach house on the California coast. After weeks of nonstop work, I was so excited for my quiet weekend getaway. Imagine my surprise when I pulled up to see my sister's car parked in the driveway. My heart sank a little knowing her husband Justin would be there too. He never liked me much. But I never expected what happened when I walked through my own front door. If you're watching this, drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to deal with entitled family members. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Let me give you some context about my life. I worked my way up from absolutely nothing to become the CEO of a successful tech company specializing in cybersecurity solutions. 2 years ago, after a particularly profitable quarter, I decided to treat myself to something I had dreamed about since childhood: a beautiful beach house in a secluded part of the California coastline. The house itself is nothing extravagant, but it's perfect for me. 3 bedrooms, an open kitchen that flows into a living room with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean, and a wraparound deck where I love to sit with my morning coffee and watch the waves. I paid cash for it after saving for years, and it represents everything I've worked for. More than just a property, this house is my sanctuary. My reward to myself for the countless 16-hour days, missed holidays, and sacrifices I made to build my company from scratch. Growing up wasn't easy for my sister Amanda and me. Our mom passed away when I was 12 and Amanda was 8. Our dad, though physically present, was emotionally absent, disappearing into a bottle most evenings. By 16, I was essentially raising Amanda while juggling school and part-time jobs. When I turned 18, I got full custody of her and worked 3 jobs to make sure she had everything she needed. I put my own college plans on hold so she could have a normal high school experience. Despite our difficult upbringing, Amanda and I were extremely close. I made sure she went to college covering her tuition entirely so she wouldn't start her adult life with student debt like I did. She studied nursing, and that's where she met Justin in her junior year when he was completing his business degree. From the very beginning, there was something off about Justin. He came from a comfortable middle-class family, but he always acted like he had something to prove. The first time Amanda brought him to meet me, I noticed how his eyes scanned my modest apartment, cataloging everything with a slightly dismissive look. When Amanda proudly told him I was paying for her education while building my own business, his smile didn't reach his eyes. Justin worked at a mid-level management position at an insurance company. It was a decent job, but he always talked about it like he was running the entire corporation. Whenever we got together for holidays or family events, he'd steer the conversation toward his big deals and major accounts, glancing at me as if expecting me to be impressed. I never was, but I smiled politely for Amanda's sake. Their wedding was 3 years after they graduated. I paid for a significant portion of it, even though Justin insisted to everyone that his parents covered everything. By then, my business was starting to take off, and I could see the shift in Justin's attitude toward me. What started as mild condescension evolved into barely concealed envy. The last family Thanksgiving was particularly tense. My company had just been featured in a business magazine, and Amanda excitedly showed the article to everyone. Justin snatched the magazine, flipped through it quickly, and tossed it aside with a scoff. "Anyone can look good in a puff piece," he said. "Real success speaks for itself." He then launched into a monologue about how he was being considered for a promotion that would change everything for them. I later learned from Amanda that promotion went to someone else. Despite Justin's attitude, I maintained a close relationship with Amanda. We had Sunday calls every week, and I made sure to be there for all my nieces' and nephews' birthdays and school events. They had 3 children now: Lily, who was 8, Emma, who was 6, and little Jake, who had just turned 4. I adored those kids and made sure they knew their Aunt Ebony loved them, even if their dad seemed to tense up whenever I brought them gifts. Last year, Justin lost his job during company layoffs. Even though he had always been cold toward me, I immediately offered to help them out financially until he found something new. They had a mortgage, car payments, and the kids' expenses. Justin initially refused, but after 2 months of struggling, Amanda called me crying about possibly losing their house. I transferred enough money to cover 6 months of their expenses, insisting it was a gift, not a loan. Justin found a new job after 4 months, but never thanked me for keeping his family afloat. Amanda did, though, multiple times. When Lily got accepted into a prestigious private school, they couldn't afford the tuition. Once again, I stepped in offering to cover her education costs. I did it for Lily, not for Justin's ego, but he acted like it was somehow an attack on his capabilities as a provider. At family gatherings, he'd make passive-aggressive comments about people who throw money around instead of actually being there, despite the fact that I attended more of the kids' events than many of their local relatives. Through it all, I kept trying. I invited them to dinners, sent thoughtful gifts, and always made time for Amanda and the kids. I believed that eventually Justin would see that I wasn't his competition. I was just someone who loved his wife and children and wanted them to be happy. But that understanding never came, and the tension between us continued to simmer beneath the surface of every interaction. Still, I never imagined just how bad things would get until that Friday evening when I arrived at my beach house, looking forward to a peaceful weekend alone, only to find my space had been invaded in the most disrespectful way possible. After 6 months of working non-stop, launching a new security protocol that had our clients raving and our competitors scrambling to catch up, I finally decided to take a long weekend for myself. My assistant Patricia practically pushed me out the door on Friday afternoon, saying, "If I see your name in the company chat before Tuesday, I'm changing all your passwords." The drive to my beach house usually takes about 2 hours from the city, but Friday traffic stretched it to nearly 3. Still, my excitement grew with every mile. I had a new novel I'd been dying to start, a bottle of my favorite wine chilling in a cooler in the trunk, and zero plans beyond sitting on my deck and doing absolutely nothing productive for 3 whole days. The sun was setting as I turned onto the private road leading to my house, painting the sky in breathtaking shades of orange and pink. That's when I noticed not just one, but 3 unfamiliar cars parked in my driveway. I recognized Amanda's blue sedan, but there was also a large SUV I'd never seen before, and Justin's company car. My peaceful weekend was evaporating before my eyes, but I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I loved my sister. Maybe they had just stopped by and would be leaving soon. As I parked on the street, since my own driveway was full, I noticed lights on in every room of the house and movement behind the curtains. This didn't look like a quick visit. I grabbed my overnight bag and made my way to the front door, using my key to enter what was, after all, my own property. The scene that greeted me left me momentarily speechless. My carefully arranged living room had been transformed into some sort of family campground. The expensive leather couch I'd saved months to buy was pushed against the wall with sleeping bags and air mattresses covering most of the floor. My coffee table had been moved to a corner, and in its place was a large folding table covered with paper plates, plastic cups, and takeout containers. Justin and Amanda were sitting on cushions on the floor with their 3 kids. An older couple who I recognized from photos as Justin's parents were occupying my dining chairs, which had been dragged into the living room. Everyone was eating what looked like pizza and fried chicken, and the distinctive smell of greasy food hung in the air. What hit me hardest wasn't just the unauthorized use of my house, but the carelessness with which my things had been treated. The hand-blown glass vase I'd purchased from a local artist was precariously perched on an ottoman now holding plastic utensils. My collection of first edition books had been shoved aside to make room for juice boxes and snacks. A photograph of my mother, one of the few I had been moved from its place of honor on the mantel and was now face down on an end table. For a moment, nobody noticed me standing in the doorway, bag still in hand, trying to process what I was seeing. Then Lily looked up, her face breaking into a delighted smile. "Aunt Ebony," she squealed, jumping up to run toward me. Her excitement alerted everyone else to my presence. Amanda's face immediately registered guilt. She knew I hadn't been informed of their plans to use my house, much less move things around and invite extended family, but she didn't get up or apologize. Instead, she cast a nervous glance at Justin, whose expression darkened instantly. Justin's parents looked annoyed at the interruption, as if I was an unexpected server who had appeared at the wrong table in a restaurant. Justin's father nodded curtly before returning to his food, while his mother's lips pinched into a tight smile that disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. Justin himself stood up slowly, his face flushing red as he placed his paper plate down with exaggerated care. The tension in the room thickened until it was almost difficult to breathe. Amanda touched his arm lightly, perhaps sensing what was coming, but he shook her off. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Before I could answer, Lily had reached me and was hugging my waist. "We're having a surprise vacation, Aunt Ebony. Daddy said we could use your beach house because you're always at work anyway." I patted Lily's head automatically, my eyes locked with Justin's over her head. "I wasn't aware you were planning to stay here," I said calmly, trying to keep the situation from escalating in front of the children. That's when it happened. Justin's face contorted with rage and he jabbed a finger in my direction. "Why is this parasite here?" he shouted, his voice booming through the room, causing Emma to flinch and Jake to start crying. "Get the hell out!" The room fell silent except for Jake's whimpers. Amanda looked horrified but said nothing in my defense. Justin's parents exchanged glances but remained silent, tacitly supporting their son's outburst. The children looked confused and frightened, especially Lily, who was still standing next to me, her small hand now clutching mine tightly. I felt as if I'd been slapped. Parasite. In my own home, after everything I'd done for their family, the shock was quickly replaced by a cold anger that settled deep in my chest. But one look at the children's frightened faces told me this wasn't the time or place for the confrontation Justin was clearly itching for. Instead, I gently disengaged Lily's hand and stepped back toward the door. With a calm I didn't feel, I smiled thinly and said, "Sure, I'm leaving." I saw the flash of triumph in Justin's eyes, the brief look of relief mixed with shame on Amanda's face, and the confusion in my niece's and nephew's expressions. As I turned and walked out of my own house, I heard Justin mutter something about finally standing up to her and Amanda's hushed plea to keep your voice down. The door closed behind me and I stood on my own porch bag, still in hand, utterly displaced from my sanctuary. But as I walked back to my car, something shifted inside me. The hurt began to crystallize into resolve. I had spent my entire life taking care of others, making allowances, smoothing over conflicts. I had given Justin and Amanda nothing but support, both emotional and financial. And this was how I was repaid. Called a parasite in my own home. As I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, I made a decision. I was done being the bigger person. It was time Justin learned exactly whose house he was staying in and what happens when you bite the hand that's been feeding you. Sitting in my car, I felt a storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the steering wheel, and I forced myself to take several deep breaths. I wasn't going to cry. Not over this. Not over him. Through the windshield, I could see my beach house lit up against the darkening sky. My house, bought with my money. A reward for my hard work. And inside, a man who had just called me a parasite was making himself comfortable with his extended family. As my initial shock faded, memories began flooding back as if my mind was building a case file of all the times I had supported Justin and Amanda. Last year when Justin was laid off, I remembered the phone call from Amanda. Her voice had been thick with tears as she explained that they were 2 months behind on their mortgage. "We've already cut every expense we can," she had said. "The kids are sharing bathwater. We're eating ramen most nights." Justin's too proud to ask, "But Ebony, I'm scared we're going to lose the house." Without hesitation, I had transferred enough money to cover 6 months of their expenses. "This is a gift, not a loan," I had insisted. "Family takes care of family." I remembered how Amanda had sobbed with relief, while Justin had remained silent in the background of the call. 4 months later, when Justin found a new position, there was no thank you. Instead, at a family dinner, he'd boasted about weathering the storm on my own terms and showing corporate America they can't keep a good man down. I had caught Amanda's eye across the table, seen her apologetic look, and simply nodded. It wasn't about the recognition. It was about helping family. Then there was Lily's education. When she tested into Westlake Academy, a prestigious private school known for its advanced curriculum, the tuition was well beyond what Justin and Amanda could afford. Once again, I stepped in. "Let me handle this," I had told them. "Lily's brilliant and she deserves every opportunity." I set up a direct payment to the school for her full tuition, plus additional funds for books, uniforms, and extracurricular activities. Justin had grumbled about Charity, but ultimately relented when Amanda pointed out what this opportunity meant for their daughter. Even then, he managed to tell extended family that Lily had received a full scholarship based on her academic performance, never mentioning my contribution. And now, after all that, he had the audacity to call me a parasite in my own home. My phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. The screen showed Sarah Wilson, my real estate attorney. I had worked with Sarah when purchasing the beach house, and we had stayed in touch since then. I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Ebony, glad I caught you," Sarah said cheerfully. "I know it's Friday evening, but I just got a call from a potential buyer who's very interested in your beach property. They're willing to go significantly above market value. I know you weren't planning to sell, but I thought it was worth mentioning." A sudden idea flashed through my mind, and I sat up straighter. "Sarah, this is actually perfect timing. I'm at the beach house right now, or rather, sitting outside it. I've got a situation here." Quickly, I explained what had just happened with Justin, Amanda, and their family taking over my house without permission. Sarah's professional demeanor shifted to outrage on my behalf. "That's completely unacceptable," she said firmly. "They have no legal right to be there. This is trespassing, plain and simple." "What are my options?" I asked, a plan beginning to form in my mind. Sarah outlined several possibilities, from the most diplomatic to the most aggressive. "The property is solely in your name," she confirmed. "You have every right to ask them to leave, and if they refuse, we can escalate to law enforcement." "Let me think about this," I said, already knowing which direction I was heading. "In the meantime, can you prepare some formal documentation stating that they're there without permission? Something official I can use if needed." "Absolutely," Sarah replied. "I'll email it to you within the hour. And Ebony, don't let them make you feel bad about standing up for yourself. Your generosity doesn't make you a doormat." After ending the call with Sarah, I immediately dialed Megan, my best friend since college, and now the director of security at my company. If anyone knew how to handle a sensitive situation with precision, it was Megan. "Hey, what's up? I thought you were supposed to be relaxing at your beach house by now," Megan answered. "That was the plan," I said dryly before explaining the situation. Megan didn't hold back. "What an absolute jerk. After everything you've done for them, tell me what you need and I'm on it." "I need to reclaim my house without creating a scene that will traumatize the kids," I explained. "And I need to do it in a way that sends a clear message to Justin without permanently damaging my relationship with Amanda and the children." Together, we formulated the beginning of a plan. As director of security, Megan had contacts with private security firms and understood the legalities of property protection. "The key is documentation and witnesses," she advised. "Make sure everything is by the book so Justin can't twist this into you being the villain." Next, I texted Patrick, my property manager, who oversaw the maintenance of my beach house and my primary residence in the city. Patrick responded immediately, despite the late hour, expressing outrage at the situation and offering his full support. With these initial pieces in place, I began to feel more in control. The hurt and shock were still there, but now they were channeled into purposeful action. I wasn't going to stoop to Justin's level with shouting or scene-making. I would handle this methodically, legally, and in a way that would make him realize exactly who he was dealing with. I started a notes document on my phone, outlining each step of my plan, considering contingencies and timing. This wasn't just about reclaiming my property, it was about setting boundaries that should have been established long ago. It was about teaching Justin that disrespect has consequences, especially when directed at someone who had shown nothing but generosity to his family. As I worked, I reminded myself that this wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. It was about establishing that my kindness wasn't weakness, and my generosity wasn't an invitation to abuse. It was about making it clear once and for all that I might be family, but I was not a pushover. With my plan taking shape, I booked a room at the Ocean View Hotel, just 5 minutes down the coast from my beach house. I would need a base of operations for what was to come. As I drove there, a sense of calm determination replaced the hurt and anger. Justin had no idea what was coming, but by morning he would never again mistake my kindness for weakness. The Ocean View Hotel was a modest but comfortable establishment with an excellent view of the coastline. After checking in, I immediately set up my laptop on the desk by the window and got to work. The digital clock on my computer read 7:15 p.m. Plenty of time to set everything in motion. My first call was back to Sarah, my attorney. "I've decided how I want to handle this," I told her firmly. "I need those documents as soon as possible, and I'd like to add a formal notice of trespassing." "Already working on it," Sarah replied. "I'll also prepare a cease and desist letter. Do you want me to send someone to deliver it tonight, or would you prefer to handle that yourself?" "I have something more comprehensive in mind," I said. "Can you also draft a document outlining the legal consequences of breaking and entering trespassing and property damage if it comes to that?" Sarah's tone became concerned. "Has there been damage to your property?" "Not structural damage," I explained, "but they've moved things around, potentially damaged valuable items. I'm more concerned about what might happen when they realize they can't stay." "I understand," Sarah said. "I'll include all relevant legal consequences and have everything to you within the hour. Do you want me to contact local law enforcement to give them a heads up?" "Not yet," I replied. "But please be available if I need to escalate this tonight." Next, I called Patrick, my property manager. Despite being Friday night, he answered immediately. "This is completely unacceptable, Ebony," he said after I explained the situation. "What do you need from me?" "First, I need to change all the security codes and locks," I said. "Can you contact our security company and have that done remotely?" "Absolutely," Patrick confirmed. "We installed that new smart system last year. Remember, I can have all codes reset within 30 minutes. They'll be locked out of any electronic entry points." "Perfect," I said. "And the physical keys?" "The front and back doors have electronic deadbolts as backups to the keypad entry," he explained. "Once I reset the system, their keys won't work either. For the sliding doors to the deck, I can have a locksmith there first thing in the morning to change those." "That works," I agreed. "Also, can we activate the security cameras? I usually keep them off when I'm not there for extended periods." "Already on it," Patrick said. "I'll set them to record and send alerts to both our phones if there's any attempt to enter after the codes are changed. Do you want me to come down there? I can be on the road in 20 minutes. I considered this. Having Patrick there would be helpful, but I also didn't want to escalate the situation unnecessarily. Not tonight, I decided. "But can you be here first thing tomorrow? Say around 7 a.m., and bring the locksmith with you." "You got it," Patrick confirmed. "I've also taken the liberty of contacting Blue Ocean Cleaning Services. They can have a team there at 7:30 tomorrow to deal with any mess." I smiled, grateful for Patrick's efficiency. "You're always one step ahead." "It's my job," he said simply. "And, Ebony, for what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. Some people need to learn the hard way that actions have consequences." After finishing with Patrick, I made one more critical call to Atlantic Security, the company that maintained the alarm systems for both my properties. I spoke with their emergency services manager, explaining that unauthorized individuals were in my beach house. "We can dispatch a security officer to the property," the manager offered. "That won't be necessary yet," I said, "but I would like to authorize a protocol change. If the alarm is triggered tonight, I want your team to immediately contact local law enforcement rather than calling me first for verification." "Understood," the manager confirmed. "We'll update your protocol immediately. Is there anything else you need from us?" "Yes," I said. "Can you activate the external floodlights to turn on automatically if anyone approaches the house after the security system is armed? And can we set the internal lights to go on full brightness if the alarm is triggered?" "Absolutely. Those are standard features in your system. We'll program that right away." With the security measures in place, I moved on to the next phase of my plan. I called the local police department's non-emergency line, asking to speak with someone about a potential trespassing situation. After a brief wait, I was connected to Sergeant Torres. "Good evening. This is Sergeant Torres. How can I help you?" I explained my situation calmly and clearly, emphasizing that I was the legal owner of the property and had documentation to prove it. I mentioned that my sister's family had entered without permission and refused to leave when asked. "I'm concerned about potential conflict," I explained. I don't want to create a scene, especially with children present, but I need them to leave my property." Sergeant Torres was professional and understanding. "Have you explicitly asked them to leave?" "I attempted to, but I was met with hostility," I explained, deciding not to mention Justin's exact words. "I left to avoid escalation in front of the children, but I plan to legally reclaim my property." "I understand," Sergeant Torres said. "Here's what I recommend. We can send officers to accompany you for a civil standby when you're ready to address them again. This is a common procedure in these situations." "That would be helpful," I agreed. "But there's more to my plan. My security team is changing all access codes tonight. If they attempt to break in after being locked out, that would constitute breaking and entering correct." "Yes, that would change the nature of the situation significantly," Sergeant Torres confirmed. "If you've secured your property and they attempt forced entry, that's a criminal matter." "In that case, I'd like to formally notify you now that if my alarm system alerts to attempted entry after 9 p.m. tonight, those individuals do not have permission to be there." "Noted," Sergeant Torres said. "We'll have patrol cars in the area, and if we receive an alarm notification, we'll respond promptly. Please email your property documentation to our department so we have it on file." I thanked Sergeant Torres for his help and immediately forwarded all relevant property documents to the email address he provided. Then, as a final precaution, I contacted a local towing company and explained my situation. "I have unauthorized vehicles parked in my private driveway," I explained. "They belong to people who are trespassing on my property. Once they're asked to leave by police if they refuse to move their vehicles, can you be on standby to tow them?" The towing company confirmed they could have a truck ready on short notice if needed, and I provided them with the address and my contact information. By 8:30 p.m., all the pieces of my plan were in place. Sarah had emailed the legal documents, Patrick had reset all security codes and activated the cameras, and the police were aware of the situation. Now all I needed to do was wait for the inevitable. I set up my laptop to display the security camera feeds from my beach house. One showed the front door and driveway, another monitored the back deck, and a third covered the side of the house with the kitchen entrance. For now, everything was quiet. Through the windows, I could see movements inside, shadows passing by, lights being turned on and off. They had no idea what was coming. At precisely 9 p.m., I received a text from Patrick's security system, armed. "All access codes reset. Any attempt to enter now will trigger the alarm." I took a deep breath and sent a simple reply. "Thank you." Now it was only a matter of time before Justin and his family discovered they had been locked out of my house. And when they did, they would learn exactly who they were dealing with. The notification came at 10:47 p.m. My phone chimed with an alert from the security system, motion detected at front entrance. I quickly turned my attention to the laptop, where the camera feed showed Justin standing at my front door, repeatedly pressing the keypad with increasing frustration. I watched as he tried the handle, then inserted a key, looking confused when neither worked. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair, then approached the keypad again, punching in the code with more force than necessary. After his third attempt, the security system activated exactly as programmed. Floodlights blazed to life, illuminating the entire front of the house and driveway in harsh white light. Justin jumped back, startled by the sudden brightness. Through the camera's audio, I could hear him cursing. He took out his phone and appeared to make a call. Moments later, Amanda appeared at the door, still wearing her pajamas, looking confused and worried. I couldn't hear their conversation clearly, but their body language told the story. Justin was gesturing angrily at the door while Amanda tried the keypad herself, then shook her head. She said something to Justin, putting a hand on his arm, which he immediately shrugged off. Justin then began pounding on the door, not knocking, but hammering with his fist in a way that made me wince for my property. When that yielded no results, he moved to the windows, peering inside as if someone might be there, deliberately keeping them out. My phone rang. It was Justin. I took a deep breath, reminded myself of my plan, and answered calmly. "What the hell did you do?" Justin shouted without preamble. "We're locked out of the house. The kids are inside." I kept my voice level. "The children are inside alone." This caught him off guard. "No, Amanda's parents took them to get ice cream, but all our stuff is in there." What kind of game are you playing? No game, Justin, I replied evenly. That's my house. You're there without my permission. The security system has been reset because unauthorized people were occupying my property. Unauthorized, he sputtered. We're family. Amanda is your sister. Yes, and I love Amanda and the kids very much, I said. But that doesn't give any of you the right to use my house without permission, especially after you called me a parasite and told me to get out of my own property. This is ridiculous, Justin was shouting so loudly now that I could hear him both through the phone and faintly through the security camera audio. We drove all the way out here for a family weekend. The kids were looking forward to the beach tomorrow. I understand that's disappointing, I said. But you should have asked me before making those plans. You certainly shouldn't have moved my belongings, rearranged my furniture, or treated my home like a public campground. So what now? Justin demanded. We're just supposed to pack everything up and leave in the middle of the night. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my concern, I replied. You made the decision to occupy someone else's home without permission. Now you're facing the consequences of that decision. I'm going to break a window if I have to, Justin threatened. You can't just lock us out with all our stuff inside. That was exactly the response I had anticipated. Justin, I want to be very clear, my security system is now armed and connected directly to the local police department. If you attempt to break into my house, you will be arrested for breaking and entering. Is that really how you want this evening to end? There was a momentary silence on the other end of the line. Then Justin's voice returned cold with rage. You wouldn't dare. It's not about daring, I explained calmly. It's about respecting property rights. My property. The property you called me a parasite for visiting earlier today. As if on cue, I heard sirens in the distance through both the phone and the security feed. The local police had excellent response times. Are those sirens? Justin asked, his voice suddenly uncertain. Did you call the cops on us on your own sister? I notified the police earlier that unauthorized individuals might attempt to break into my beach house, I explained. When you threatened to break a window, the security system automatically alerted them. They're just doing their job. Through the camera, I watched as a police cruiser pulled up in front of my house, lights flashing. 2 officers stepped out and approached Justin, who was still holding the phone to his ear. I have to go, he said abruptly, ending the call. I continued watching through the security feed as the officers spoke with Justin. I couldn't hear the conversation clearly, but I could see Justin gesturing wildly, pointing at the house, then at his phone. One of the officers appeared to be taking notes, while the other maintained a professional distance, hands resting near his belt. Amanda came into view, looking distressed. She spoke to the officers, her body language pleading. I felt a twinge of guilt seeing my sister in this position, but I reminded myself that she had sat silently while her husband called me a parasite in my own home. My phone rang again. This time, it was the police department. Miss Taylor, this is Officer Rodriguez. We're at your beach property responding to a potential break-in. There are individuals here claiming to be family members who have permission to use your home. Can you confirm whether that's the case? No, Officer Rodriguez, they do not have permission, I stated clearly. That's my private property, and they entered without my knowledge or consent. When I discovered them there earlier today and attempted to address the situation, I was verbally abused and told to leave my own property. I understand, Officer Rodriguez replied. We're explaining the situation to them now. The gentleman is quite insistent that they have a right to be there. They absolutely do not, I affirmed. I have all the property documentation which I emailed to Sergeant Torres earlier this evening. I'm the sole owner, and no one else has legal rights to access or use the property without my explicit permission. Yes, we have that documentation on file, Officer Rodriguez confirmed. Mr. Walker is now claiming that they left valuable personal items inside and need to retrieve them. I'm willing to allow them to collect their personal belongings, I said reasonably. However, given the hostility displayed earlier, I'd prefer if that happened with police present, and preferably tomorrow morning when I can be there as well. That seems like a fair solution, Officer Rodriguez agreed. What time would work for you? I can be there by 8 a.m., I said. I've already arranged for a property manager and cleaning service to be there at that time as well. We'll relay that to them. Just to be clear, you want them to leave the premises entirely tonight, correct? Yes, that's correct, I confirmed. They are not authorized to stay in or around the property. I watched through the camera as Officer Rodriguez returned to Justin and Amanda and apparently relayed my message. Justin's reaction was immediate and explosive. Even without clear audio, I could see him gesturing angrily, his face reddening. The second officer stepped closer, his posture shifting subtly to a more alert stance. Amanda placed her hand on Justin's arm, speaking intensely to him. Whatever she said seemed to have some effect as his gestures became less wild, though his body remained tense with anger. A minivan pulled into the driveway just then. An older couple I recognized as Amanda's in-laws getting out, followed by the 3 children in their pajamas. The scene became more complicated as the children, clearly tired and confused, gathered around their parents while the officers maintained their positions. Officer Rodriguez returned to the phone. Miss Taylor, the family is requesting that they be allowed to stay the night and leave in the morning. There are young children involved, and they claim they have nowhere else to go at this hour. I had anticipated this appeal to sympathy and was prepared. Officer, I understand the concern for the children, but there's an Ocean View Hotel just 5 minutes down the road with plenty of vacancies. I'm actually staying there myself right now. They have family suites available. I checked earlier. I see, said Officer Rodriguez. I'll pass that information along. I continued watching the feed as the officer spoke to Justin and Amanda again. Justin's reaction was predictable. His gestures became even more agitated. I could imagine the arguments he was making about cost and inconvenience. What he didn't know was that I had already called the hotel and arranged to cover a family suite for them if needed, though I had no intention of telling him that directly. The situation reached its climax when Justin, apparently refusing to accept the officer's instructions, took a step toward the house door. The officer moved quickly, stepping between Justin and the door, saying something that made Justin stop in his tracks. The second officer moved closer, and for a tense moment, I wondered if Justin would be foolish enough to escalate the situation to an arrest. Amanda's intervention saved him from that fate. She physically pulled him back, speaking urgently into his ear. The children were now clinging to her legs, looking frightened. Justin's parents stood awkwardly to the side, their expressions a mix of embarrassment and indignation. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity but was probably only 5 minutes, I saw Justin's shoulders slump in defeat. The family began moving toward their vehicles, the children being ushered by Amanda's in-laws, while Amanda and Justin spoke with the officers for a few more moments. As they prepared to leave, another vehicle pulled up the tow truck I had arranged to be on standby. Perfect timing. The driver got out and approached the officers, presumably explaining why he was there. Justin's reaction was visible even through the grainy night vision camera. His hands flew up in exasperation, and he seemed to be shouting again. Officer Rodriguez called me back. Miss Taylor, there's a tow truck here saying you authorized them to remove vehicles from your property. That's correct, I confirmed. Any vehicles left on the property without authorization should be towed. However, if they're leaving now voluntarily, the towing won't be necessary. I watched as Justin and his family hurriedly got into their vehicles. The officer spoke to the tow truck driver, who nodded and returned to his truck but remained parked nearby, clearly waiting to ensure everyone actually left. One by one, the 3 vehicles backed out of my driveway. I felt a wave of relief as they pulled away, followed closely by the police cruiser, presumably to ensure they actually left the area. The tow truck waited a few minutes longer, then also departed. Officer Rodriguez called one last time. Miss Taylor, the family has left the premises. We'll have a patrol car drive by occasionally throughout the night to ensure they don't return. Would you like us to meet you here in the morning as well? Yes, please, I said. I'd appreciate an officer present when they return to collect their belongings. We'll arrange that, he assured me. Have a good night, Miss Taylor. As the police cruiser's lights disappeared down the road, I sat back in my hotel chair, a complex mix of emotions washing over me. I had reclaimed my property and stood up for myself, but I took no joy in seeing my nieces and nephew confused and upset. Still, this was a necessary lesson for Justin, and unfortunately sometimes lessons come with collateral emotional damage. I sent a quick text to Amanda. There's a family suite reserved for you at the Ocean View Hotel under your name, already paid for. I love you and the kids. I didn't mention Justin. A few minutes later, my phone chimed with a response. Thank you. We'll talk tomorrow. No mention of Justin from her either. Perhaps this incident had opened her eyes to some hard truths about her husband. Or perhaps I had just damaged our relationship beyond repair. Only time would tell. The next morning I woke at 6 a.m. after a restless night of sleep. Despite the justification for my actions, I couldn't help worrying about Amanda and the children. Had I been too harsh? Should I have found another way to handle the situation? But each time doubt crept in, I reminded myself of Justin's words. Why is this parasite here? Get the hell out. No, I had simply stood up for myself after years of accepting disrespect. After a quick shower and breakfast from the hotel's buffet, I drove back to my beach house. Patrick was already waiting in the driveway when I arrived, along with a locksmith and 2 women in Blue Ocean Cleaning Services uniforms. A police cruiser was parked across the street, Officer Rodriguez from last night, keeping his promise to provide support. Morning Ebony. Patrick greeted me, his expression sympathetic. Rough night. You could say that I replied, unlocking the front door with the new code Patrick had sent me. The scene inside was worse than I had expected. In their hasty exit, Justin and his family had left behind a mess of food containers, discarded clothing, and carelessly strewn belongings. My beautiful living room looked like it had hosted a frat party. The cleaning crew exchanged glances, but remained professionally silent as they assessed the work ahead of them. Let's get started, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Patrick, can you work with the locksmith to change any remaining locks? And ladies, if you could focus on the kitchen and living room first, I'd appreciate it. As everyone set to work, I walked through the house, cataloging the disruption. My bedroom door was open, though I always kept it closed when away. Inside the bed was unmade. Justin and Amanda had apparently claimed it for themselves. My private bathroom had their toiletries scattered across the counter, and damp towels lay in heaps on the floor. In the guest bedroom, air mattresses and sleeping bags were arranged for the children, while the third bedroom had clearly been used by Justin's parents. Throughout the house, I found evidence of careless use rings from wet glasses on wooden surfaces, a wine stain on my cream-colored rug, and what looked like crayon marks on one wall. I took photos of everything, not for any legal purpose, but as a reminder to myself of why boundaries matter. As I finished my inspection, Officer Rodriguez knocked on the front door, which Patrick had propped open. Miss Taylor, the family has arrived to collect their belongings. I took a deep breath and stepped outside. 3 vehicles were parked on the street: Justin's car, Amanda's sedan, and his parents' SUV. Justin stood by his car, arms crossed, glaring at me. Amanda was helping the children out of her car, while Justin's parents remained seated in their SUV, apparently unwilling to engage directly. Good morning, I said, keeping my voice neutral. You can come in and collect your things. The cleaning crew is already working, so please try not to disturb them. Justin stepped forward, but Officer Rodriguez subtly positioned himself between us, a silent reminder of the official presence overseeing this interaction. This is completely unnecessary, Justin hissed, quiet enough that the children couldn't hear but loud enough to convey his anger. You've traumatized my kids for what? To prove a point. I refuse to take the bait. Your belongings are where you left them. Please collect everything and be thorough. The cleaning crew will dispose of anything left behind. Amanda approached, holding Jake's hand, while Lily and Emma followed close behind. The girls avoided eye contact with me, clearly confused and uncomfortable with the situation. Jake, too young to fully understand, was the only one who smiled at me. Hi, Auntie Ebony, he said cheerfully. Despite everything, I felt my expression soften. Hi, buddy. Did you have pancakes for breakfast? I know they're your favorite. He nodded enthusiastically. With chocolate chips. Amanda gave me a complicated look, part gratitude for the normal interaction with her son, part lingering embarrassment from the previous night. Girls, can you take Jake inside and start gathering your backpacks and toys? Dad and I will be right there. Once the children were out of earshot, Amanda turned to me. "Ebony, I can't believe you called the police on us." "I can't believe you sat silently while your husband called me a parasite in my own home," I countered quietly, "after everything I've done for your family." Amanda had the grace to look ashamed. He was out of line. I know that. But to have us thrown out in the middle of the night? "You were never thrown out," I clarified. "You were asked to leave a property you were occupying without permission. There's a difference. And I made sure you had a comfortable place to stay." "The hotel was nice," Amanda admitted reluctantly. "Thank you for that." Justin, who had been watching our exchange with narrowed eyes, interjected, "Oh, so we're supposed to be grateful now for being humiliated in front of our children, for having the police called on us like criminals." "Justin," I said, looking him directly in the eye, "you called me a parasite. In my own home. A home I paid for. After I've helped your family financially numerous times, including paying for your daughter's private school education and keeping you afloat when you lost your job. So yes, I think a little gratitude would be appropriate, but I've long since stopped expecting it from you." Justin's face flushed red, but before he could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and stepped away to answer it. From his expression and suddenly professional tone, I guessed it was work-related. Amanda watched him walk away, then turned back to me. "We shouldn't have come without asking," she admitted softly. "It was Justin's idea. His parents wanted to see the ocean, and when he mentioned you had a beach house, they kept saying how nice it would be to have a family weekend. I should have called you first." "Yes, you should have," I agreed. "Amanda, I love you and the kids. You know that. But this pattern of behavior from Justin, and your tolerance of it, it has to stop. I won't be disrespected anymore." Amanda nodded slowly. "I understand, and I'm sorry." We stood in uncomfortable silence until Justin returned, his expression now more concerned than angry. "That was HR," he said to Amanda, not acknowledging me. "They want me to come in for a meeting on Monday. Something about a review of company conduct policies." I kept my face carefully neutral. I hadn't directly contacted Justin's workplace, but I had spoken with a colleague who sat on the board of his company during my flurry of calls the previous evening. I had merely mentioned Justin by name and the company's policy on personal conduct reflecting company values. The rest had taken care of itself. "You," Justin turned to me, realization dawning. "Did you call my workplace?" "I speak with many people, Justin," I replied evenly, "including some who care deeply about professional standards and respectful behavior." Justin's face contorted with anger, but a warning look from Officer Rodriguez kept him from saying whatever was on his mind. Instead, he stormed past me into the house to collect his family's belongings. The next hour passed in tense efficiency. Justin, Amanda, and the children, along with Justin's parents who finally emerged from their car, gathered their possessions while the cleaning crew worked around them. Patrick oversaw the locksmith changing the last of the locks, and I documented the condition of recovered items, particularly noting that my mother's photograph had a cracked frame. As they prepared to leave, Justin's mother approached me stiffly. "I want you to know that I don't approve of how you've handled this situation," she said. "Family should work things out privately." I smiled politely. "I agree. Family matters should be handled with mutual respect and consideration, qualities that were notably absent when your son called me a parasite in my own home." She pressed her lips together but had no response to that. Justin's father merely nodded curtly as they walked to their SUV. Amanda hung back after loading the children into her car. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "That depends on Justin," I replied honestly. "I've always been there for you and the kids, and I always will be. But I won't tolerate being disrespected anymore. Not by anyone." Amanda nodded slowly. "I'll talk to him. He's been under a lot of pressure lately." "Pressure doesn't justify cruelty," I said gently, "especially not to family who've supported you." She didn't argue. After a brief hesitation, she gave me a quick hug. "I'll call you next week," she promised before joining her family. I watched as the 3 vehicles drove away, feeling a complicated mix of sadness, resolution, and relief. As Officer Rodriguez prepared to leave as well, he paused beside me. "Miss Taylor, For what it's worth, you handled this situation better than most people would have. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you the bad guy." I thanked him, appreciating the unexpected validation. As his cruiser disappeared down the road, I turned back to my beach house. The cleaning crew was making progress, and Patrick had just finished testing all the new locks. "All secure," he reported, "and I've updated the security system with new codes. Only you have access now." "Thank you, Patrick," I said sincerely, "for everything." Later that afternoon, after the cleaners had gone and my house was finally back to normal, I received 3 unexpected messages. The first was from Justin's HR department confirming receipt of a video showing conduct unbecoming of an employee. I realized then that Patrick must have sent them footage from the security cameras showing Justin's outburst. I hadn't asked for this, but I wasn't sorry it had happened. The second was from Justin's mother, surprisingly. "While I don't approve of your methods," she wrote, "I must acknowledge that Justin's behavior was inappropriate. We raised him better than that. My husband and I will be having a serious conversation with him." The third message came from Amanda. "Justin has agreed to counseling. For himself and for us as a couple. I should have stood up for you. I'm sorry." That night, as I sat on my deck watching the sunset over the ocean, I felt at peace with my decisions. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people we love the most, but that doesn't make those boundaries any less necessary. 1 month later, I hosted a small gathering at my beach house. The weather was perfect, typical late summer warmth with a gentle breeze coming off the ocean. I had spent the morning preparing a simple but elegant lunch: grilled salmon, a colorful salad, and homemade lemonade. On the deck, I had set up a children's table with craft supplies, knowing my nieces and nephew would need entertainment. When Amanda's car pulled into the driveway, I felt a flutter of nervousness. This would be the first time I had seen her and the children since the incident. We had spoken several times by phone, gradually rebuilding our relationship through honest conversations. Today was a significant step forward, one I had suggested as a way to create new positive memories at the beach house. Amanda stepped out of the car looking more relaxed than I had seen her in years. The children tumbled out after her, excited by the prospect of a day at the beach. What surprised me was seeing Justin emerge from the driver's side. He had agreed to come, but I hadn't been certain he would actually show up. Aunt Ebony Lily called, running toward me with Emma and Jake close behind. I knelt to embrace them, relieved that whatever tension existed between the adults hadn't affected their affection for me. "I missed you guys so much," I said, hugging each of them tightly. "I have some special crafts set up for you on the deck, and wait until you see the sandcastle tools I got." As the children raced to explore, Amanda approached and gave me a warm hug. "Thanks for doing this," she said quietly. "It means a lot." Justin hung back, his body language stiff but not hostile. When Amanda stepped aside, he moved forward and extended his hand formally. "Ebony," he said with a nod. I accepted his handshake. "Justin, thank you for coming." The early part of the afternoon had its awkward moments. Justin was polite, but reserved, speaking only when directly addressed. I noticed, however, that he was different with Amanda. He listened when she spoke, responded thoughtfully, and even deferred to her opinion on several occasions, a dynamic I had never witnessed before. After lunch, Amanda helped me clear the table, while Justin took the children down to the beach. Standing side by side at the kitchen sink, I finally asked the question that had been on my mind. "How are things really going?" Amanda was quiet for a moment, carefully rinsing a plate before responding. "Better. Actually, a lot better. The counseling has helped more than I expected. Justin, he had some issues he never dealt with. Insecurities about measuring up to his father's expectations, feeling inadequate. That doesn't excuse how he treated you." "Or me," I said gently. "No, it doesn't," Amanda agreed firmly. "And he knows that now." The counselor made it very clear that understanding the root of behavior doesn't justify it. He's been doing the work, Ebony. Really doing it. Last week, he actually thanked me for standing by him through his job loss last year. He's never acknowledged that before. Through the window, I could see Justin building a sandcastle, with the children patiently helping Jake pack sand into a bucket. "And what about you?" I asked. How are you doing in all of this?" Amanda smiled, a small but genuine smile. "I'm finding my voice. The counselor has sessions with us together and separately. In my individual sessions, we talk a lot about why I didn't stand up for myself or for you. It goes back to our childhood, you know. I got so used to you protecting me, taking care of everything. I never really learned how to stand my ground. I felt a pang of guilt. Had my protection of Amanda actually stunted her growth in some way, I never wanted to make you dependent," I said softly. "It wasn't your fault," Amanda assured me. "You did what you had to do for us to survive, but I'm learning now." Last week, when Justin started to raise his voice during an argument, I told him I wouldn't continue the conversation if he couldn't speak respectfully, and he stopped, apologized, and we finished talking calmly. "I'm proud of you," I told her, and I meant it. Later in the afternoon, while Amanda was helping the children build an elaborate sand fortress, Justin approached me as I sat on the deck. "Can we talk?" he asked, gesturing to the chair beside me. I nodded, and he sat down looking out at the ocean for several long moments before speaking. "I need to apologize," he finally said, still not looking at me. "What I said to you that night was inexcusable. You've been nothing but generous to our family, and I repaid that with disrespect." I studied his profile, trying to gauge the sincerity of his words. Why the hostility, Justin? I've never understood it. I've only tried to help. He sighed heavily. "That's exactly it. Your help, your success, your generosity, it all made me feel less than. Every time you helped us financially, it was a reminder that I couldn't provide well enough for my family on my own. Every time Amanda talked about how amazing her big sister was, I felt like I was being compared and coming up short. That was never my intention," I said. "I know that now," Justin acknowledged. "My counselor helped me see that my insecurities were my problem, not yours. I projected my feelings of inadequacy onto you, made you the villain in my story. It was easier than addressing my own issues." He turned to look at me directly. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. What I did doesn't deserve that. But I am promising you that I'm working to be better. For Amanda, for the kids, and yes, for you too. Because you're important to them, which means you should be important to me as well." I considered his words carefully. "Thank you for that. I appreciate the apology and the self-awareness it took to make it. I don't know if we'll ever be close, Justin, but we can be respectful. That's a start." He nodded, seeming to accept this realistic assessment of our potential relationship. "That's fair. And Ebony, thank you for paying for Lily's school. I should have said that a long time ago." As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the waves, we gathered on the deck for dessert homemade ice cream sandwiches that the children helped assemble. Looking around at this imperfect but healing family tableau, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. The following weeks and months brought continued progress. Justin remained in counseling both individually and with Amanda. Our family interactions became more comfortable, with Justin making visible efforts to show respect and appreciation. Amanda blossomed as she found her independence, even returning to nursing part-time, something she had wanted to do for years but had been discouraged from by Justin's previous attitude. For my part, I learned valuable lessons as well. I realized that sometimes my help, though well-intentioned, had created unhealthy dynamics. I began finding ways to support Amanda and the children that empowered rather than enabled, consulting Amanda on decisions rather than making them for her, encouraging her career aspirations, setting up education funds for the children that would be available when they were older. The most profound lesson, though, was about the nature of boundaries. For years I had confused kindness with unlimited tolerance, believing that loving someone meant accepting whatever treatment they offered. That night at the beach house had forced me to recognize that true kindness includes kindness to oneself, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others is to show them how to treat you with respect. 6 months after the incident, as I sat alone on the deck of my beach house watching the sunset, I received a text from Amanda. "Just wanted to say thank you. Not just for everything you've done for us, but for showing me what standing up for yourself looks like. You changed more than you know that night." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over me like the gentle waves on the shore below. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't sacrifice or endless giving, it's teaching others how to respect you. And sometimes the person who needs that lesson most is family. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself doesn't make you the villain of the story. Thank you for listening. And remember, your worth isn't measured by how much you tolerate, but by how much you value yourself and teach others to do the same.